Okay, well, thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited and honored to be joined by Perry Cross AM. Perry's motto is everything is possible, and he exemplifies that in all aspects of his life. He's the president and founder of the Perry Cross Spinal Research Foundation, which he started after traveling to the United States as an advisor to the United Nations General Assembly and meeting with the late Christopher Reeve and his envoy there. He was awarded Suncorp Young Queenslander of the Year, was a finalist for the Young Australian of the Year awards, was the first quadriplegic to complete a communications and business degree at Bond University, has published numerous books, was named Cure Warrior Advocate of the Year at the International Working to Walk Symposium. In 2018, Perry was chosen as a Gold Coast Commonwealth Games baton barrier, and in 2020 was appointed a member of the Order of Australia for significant service to people living with a spinal cord injury and as a role model for the community. So welcome, Perry, to the Community Hub, and thank you for making the time to share your perspectives on dignity with us.
Thanks for having me.
I wanted to start out and just ask you if there's anything you might want to share with our listeners, readers, viewers today about your experience and your journey living with your impairment.
Yeah, I guess, I've been injured 27 years or so now, so it's been a long journey. And I guess over time you become sort of used to the situation and it becomes a bit of second nature in terms of the way you live your life and how things are done. And it's different to other people's lives. So you sort of, it becomes the new normal and you become to accustomed with the situation. So for me, it's been challenging and there's been plenty of obstacles, to say the least. But I guess you get used to that, and it's a way of life that is different, but you just got to make the most of the situation and make the best of the situation as well. You can't be sort of too stuck in the past, and you've got to adapt to the future, I guess, is my outlook as well.
Yeah, great. I want to ask you, what does dignity mean to you?
Yeah, well, I've got to be honest, when you asked me about being on Dignity Project, I had to go and look up dignity and understand the word from a technical point of view. I was like, I had it in my mind, but dignity to me is about being worthy, and that's what it said in the dictionary when I looked it up, and I was like, okay, well, what does being worthy mean? And I guess for someone with a spinal cord injury and a high level spinal cord injury and a person with a disability, being worthwhile is a really important thing to think about, because how do I say it? I guess we have to be worthy in our position in the community. If we're not worthy as people in the community, then what are we doing here? And so I guess that's in a nutshell what my take is, and I guess that goes across all parts and aspects of the community, because it's been a long journey for myself, but I've seen a lot of change over those years. And when I was injured a long time ago, things like accessible transport, accessible housing, community, accessibility in general, disability access, all those sort of things weren't very common, and it's improved over time. So I guess I've seen the changes that make people feel more worthy and more dignified.
Great. No, that's a great answer. And I guess, important for the community to recognize that people with disability are worthwhile members of the community and worthy of being treated just the same as everyone else.
That's right.
Yeah. Awesome. How do you know when you're being treated with dignity? I guess what do those interactions look like and feel like when someone from the community is treating you that way?
I guess when people, don't talk to you directly and they talk to the people with you or around you, and sometimes you feel like you've been overlooked. But I guess and I don't blame people for that. I think everyone's different. Everyone's come from different backgrounds, and their exposure to someone in my situation might be very limited. So I'm not going to hold that against people, because I was probably in that same situation when I became paralysed. I'd never met anyone with a spinal cord injury, and I didn't know anyone that used a wheelchair. And then all of a sudden you're thrown in the deep end, and you're that person. So, but the more we can do as a community to share people's journeys and stories and experiences to make it more normal, for one of use of a better word, then it becomes just part of the everyday story, and these are just people doing normal things like everyone else. Like when I get up and go to work in the morning, I feel normal. That's my normal day. It's not unusual for me to do that. So, but for other people seeing me do that, they might go, wow, that's amazing. Well, no, it's not amazing. It's just a normal day for me. It's pretty straightforward and simple these days. So I just want to maybe make that more commonplace.
Yeah. Yeah, great. No, I think that's really important too. And my co-researcher, Angel Dixon, who works at the Dignity Project with me, she works a lot in the area of representation in the media, just to make people more aware that, there's lots of people with diverse lifestyles and impairments out there, and that needs to just become more commonplace and representative. So yeah, that really speaks to the work that she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I'm wondering if you have a specific moment related to either dignified treatment or undignified treatment that inspired you to become an advocate and inspired you to go down this track. It might not be one moment, but maybe the accumulation of moments, that inspired you to come to where you are today.
Well, Kelsey, I think I see it every day, unfortunately, where there are moments that are more dignifying and less dignifying. And sometimes it's not just because you have a disability, but maybe they're more frequently because you have a disability. But a classic is with the National Disability Insurance Scheme, which is a wonderful scheme. It's a world-class scheme, and it's like no other country in the world that we were able to offer such a great program to our community. But I guess from my point of view is that we have this wonderful disability scheme, which is under a lot of pressure at the moment, and we're seeing people go through tremendous changes, tremendous heartache, getting access to the scheme, and then getting the right supports from the scheme, and then seeing some of those supports come and then go. And there's all this really, really good but bad stuff happening. And from my point of view, I find it undignifying, because you can't offer someone something and then not provide it, in a sense, especially when people have such severe needs. And there's an analogy, like if you offer a starving person a bowl of food, and then take it away from them, then that's just totally cruel and heartbreaking. You would never do that. It's undignified. To do that to someone is totally immoral and wrong. So you would allow them to have the food. That would be the logical answer. You just give them the food because they're starving, right? Well, the NDIS has almost created a sense of false hope for people because they've pushed out this wonderful scheme to all the wider community with great intentions. But now there's a feeling of, well, this is not sustainable. We're going to have to take this back. Well, wait a sec. You said we were worthy in the first place, but now you're telling us we're not worthy because of the scheme sustainability. Well, to me, that sounds like it's about other issues, not whether or not we're worthy. So you have to be very careful about offering people things and then the way that you start to attract them. And I think that's happening at the moment with everyone in the country with a disability.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that resonates with me strongly. Like, you're not worth the money, I think
That's
is
right.
kind of the message that's coming across, which again is totally undignified. And to put a dollar value on someone's life, I think we saw that come out of COVID too. Like, the prioritization of people without a disability getting medical treatment or COVID treatment. It really sends a message to the community that you're not worthy. And yeah, I think that's quite destabilizing and undignified to be sure. How does that inspire you to advocate for change? What do you do in that space? And what do you think other people could learn from you about being an advocate for themselves and also for the community?
Yeah, well, the two things that I'm doing at the moment, obviously through the Pericross Spinal Research Foundation, is funding medical research to try and find a cure for paralysis because I believe that it's a worthy cause and I believe that it's worth investing in. And I believe that not only people with paralysis worth investing in, but I believe the science and the technology and the advancement is worth investing in. That's what I honestly believe. So that's one thing that I'm really focused on, and I want to see change. The other thing I'm involved in, I'm also the founder of Accessible Homes Australia because I honestly believe that we need greater access to accommodation and housing supports for people with sorry, just hit this button.
That's all right.
With people with higher physical support requirements to have access to housing that is appropriate and suited to their needs. Too long, people lived in the community in inadequate housing, make do scenarios where it's unsafe, it's dislocated. Often, people with disabilities live in areas where they don't have the community facilities and supports around them to meet their needs. So that's the other project I'm also involved in, is making sure that we can provide sustainable, adequate housing for people because they're worthy. Why wouldn't people with disabilities want or need housing? It's tailored to their needs and designed around their requirements. So these things are sort of really logical, but they've taken so long, and there's so much work had to go into getting it sort of all happen. But in my eyes, it's pretty simple.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think for our community hub members, that's really nice to see someone I guess you're a very visible member of the community out there, being a really staunch advocate. And so I think it's good for people to see you're across so many different aspects of advocacy, research, fundraising, and then really practical, sustainable solutions. Um, so I think, yeah, that's amazing. And what kind of work, aside from what you've mentioned, do you think still needs to be done to ensure that everyone can be treated with dignity, particularly in Australia?
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess the NDIS is a classic, and I think we're going to see more in the next few years as more pressure is added to the scheme in terms of what the government keeps saying in terms of sustainability. So that's going to be one thing for everyone to be mindful of. But um, I, I don't know, Kelsey, it's a hard one because there's a lot of different issues and tasks that need to be sort of taken up. Um, and from my point of view, some of the ones I've just mentioned still have a lot of work to be done. So without adding too much more to the list of things to do, I'm probably focused on those for now. I guess, yeah, I don't know if there's anything I can think of that I would suggest that needs adding to the list from my perspective, but I'm sure there are probably lots of things.
Yeah. Well, I think it's certainly a long list from my perspective. And
Yeah.
I think, from my angle, just starting to meet some of those obligations under the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disability would be, a good start. And a lot of what you're talking about falls under those obligations. And I think it's about starting to have a transparent plan around how are we as a country going to meet those obligations. I think we've got a lot of work ahead of
Yeah.
us.
I would love to see a roadmap.
Yeah.
That would be a simple request. A roadmap for not just the NDIS, but a disability roadmap in terms of what are we going to do for the people living in the community to help their not only their education but their career opportunities, their housing opportunities, their lifestyle opportunities, and their ability to have access to normal things like relationships and families and all those sort of things. And what does that roadmap like? Is at the moment doesn't appear to be one, and it
No.
doesn't appear that anyone's ever going to invest the time or the effort in doing one because everyone's so busy putting out fires and dealing with day-to-day issues that there's not a lot of planning going on. So yeah, that'd be one thing that would be wonderful to see and maybe help sort of some of those people worried about scheme sustainability in the NDIS to think about, well, here's a way forward.
Yeah, I think that's great. I would love to see something like that. I maybe am not holding on hope that it would come out anytime soon, but I think that also then says to the community as a whole, we value you. We're searching to embed your dignity in everything that we do. And here's how we're going to try to do that over the next 10 years. And we have those sorts of plans for a lot of other sectors, a lot of other aspects of the population. And, it's like disability is the world's largest minority. So let's start to have that for a really important sector of our community. I love that idea.
A classic one is the education system, right? When you segregate people, particularly from a young age, and particularly in education, and straight away you're not educating those people when you've segregated them because you haven't exposed people with disability to able-bodied people to each other. You didn't educate them, and that And in my time, when I was at school, as a young kid, I was never exposed to people with disability. And it was a mistake that we made in our system
Yeah.
because I didn't have that exposure to each other. So that's one place we could start is, and I couldn't tell you the work being done in the system at the moment, but I hope there's being work being done around that because I think there needs to be better um, uh, interaction.
Yeah. Great. We just released a 3-part series that Joe ran on inclusive education to the community hub, which was really well received about what inclusive and dignified education actually means, particularly for people with disability. And I think there's been a lot of advancement, but I think it's like everything. There's a long way to go until we're getting it right every time. Um, so, yeah, I'm wondering if you have any sort of closing messages or something you want to say to our members about continuing to work for dignity in their own lives.
Yeah, I think it's really important that people that, that you own your dignity in terms of you have to you have to believe that you're worthy. You have to believe that you're worthwhile. And if you don't believe it, then you don't allow other people to believe it. And I think that would be my key message. You have to have the, the boldness and the bravado and the braveness and the courage and the self-belief and the resilience and all these things in your armour so that when you leave the front door in the morning, you can enter the community with pride and respect. Because if you don't have it, then you won't get treated with it. And I think that's it's unfortunate as it is, but that's one lesson that I've learned in my time is that if I don't have the self confidence, the self belief, then other people won't have the belief and the confidence in me. So that would be my message to people out there that maybe looking for something. It's by all means possible to achieve what you're doing, but you have to have that in your armour.